Have you ever felt just completely overwhelmed by all the talk about AI,
Hmm.
especially when it touches things as big as school and work?
Oh, absolutely. It feels like you constantly hear these extreme takes.
Hmm,
AI is either going to save us all or it's the end of the world as we know it.
exactly.
Oh.
But what if it's simpler or maybe more complex?
Hmm.
What if AI is really just showing us what was already kind of broken?
That's a really interesting way to put it.
Well, that's basically our mission for this deep dive today. We
Yeah.
want to get past the good versus bad thing.
Right.
We're going to try and unpack let's say, the nuanced reality of how AI is hitting our schools, our careers. We sifted through a whole stack of notes, research, different perspectives,
Hmm.
all trying to get at that question. Is AI breaking education, or is it just making us finally look at the cracks that were there all along?
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where do we start?
So let's dive in. We'll look at the good stuff, the potential benefits. Then we'll tackle the downsides, the worries, both for school and for work.
Yeah.
And this is the part I find fascinating. We'll really dig into what learning even means now with AI in the picture. We'll challenge some old ideas, maybe explore some new paths for where education could go.
Sounds like a plan, equipping people with a deeper understanding, right?
That's the goal, helping you navigate these really big, sometimes confusing questions.
Okay.
So let's start with schools, the bright side. What are some of those promising possibilities when AI walks into the classroom?
Well, one of the biggest things you see highlighted is this idea of truly personalized learning.
Right.
Think about it. AI can actually adapt to how fast a student learns, what their strengths are, where they're struggling. A teacher, even a great one, just can't customize like that for, say, 30 kids simultaneously.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like having a tutor for everyone.
In a way, yeah. And it opens up huge possibilities for accessibility, too. Voice-to-text, translation tools, summarization. These can be total game changers for students with disabilities or those learning the language, or neurodivergent learners. It helps them participate more fully.
Okay, so personalization and accessibility. What else?
The other big theme is how AI can potentially change the teacher's role for the better.
Not replace them, but support them.
Exactly. Imagine AI handling the routine stuff, grading multiple choice tests, managing schedules, maybe even drafting initial lesson plans.
That would free up a lot of time.
A ton of time. Time for teachers to do the really human stuff,
Yeah.
build relationships, mentor students one-on-one, lead discussions, focus on deeper understanding.
And using the tools themselves could be a learning opportunity.
Absolutely. Talking about AI output forces kids to think about truth, bias, where information comes from. That's critical thinking gold right there.
Plus, I guess learning to use these tools is just necessary now. It's like learning to type was decades ago.
It really is. It's becoming a fundamental literacy. If we
Yeah.
don't teach kids how to use AI thoughtfully, we're actually leaving them unprepared for the future they're walking into.
Okay, that's a compelling case for the good. But you mentioned earlier, for every upside.
There's a potential downside that needs serious attention. It's fascinating, really.
So what are the big worries with AI in schools?
Well, that personalized learning, it can easily slip into students just relying on the AI, a shortcut culture.
Like getting the AI to write your essay.
Exactly. Or solve the math problem without understanding the steps. You get the answer, but you don't actually learn the skill or the reasoning behind it.
Okay, so over-reliance. What else?
Equity is a massive one. If only richer schools can afford the best AI tools or even have reliable internet access.
Then it just widens the gap that's already there.
Precisely. It could make inequality much, much worse. And then there's the whole issue of bias and just plain wrong information.
Because the AI models themselves aren't perfect?
Right. They're trained on data that reflects our world, biases and all. They can generate content that's subtly biased or sometimes just factually incorrect. If students aren't taught critical media literacy, they might just accept it as truth.
And data privacy, I imagine that's a concern too.
Huge concern. These tools often collect vast amounts of student data. Who owns that data? How is it being used? Is it secure? What happens if there's a breach? These are critical questions we don't always have good answers for.
And finally, just the human touch.
Yeah, the human connection. Education isn't just downloading facts. It's about relationships, social learning, emotional growth. Too much tech, poorly implemented, could lead to real disconnection.
So, okay, big potential, but also some serious risks. How do we navigate this? What are the key takeaways for using AI well in schools?
Well, the first principle that really comes through is AI is a tool. It's not the teacher.
It amplifies good teaching, maybe. but doesn't replace it.
Exactly. Its value depends entirely on the pedagogy, the teaching philosophy, and methods. Is it being used to spark curiosity and creativity, or is it just enabling those shortcuts we talked about?
Pedagogy first, tech second.
Absolutely. And alongside that is the need to really empower students with digital literacy, teach them how to use these tools responsibly, how to question their output, how to be critical users, not just passive consumers.
Make them partners in learning, not just users of a magic answer box.
Well put. And the final big point is context. What works in one school or even one grade level might be totally wrong for another.
Right. A fancy AI platform for high school calculus is different from using, I don't know, a simple reading assistant in first grade.
Exactly. There's no single answer here. It has to be tailored to the specific needs, resources, and goals of that community.
Okay, let's pivot then,
Yeah.
because it feels like a lot of the same dynamics, the promise and the peril, are playing out in the workplace too.
Oh, definitely. The impact on our professional lives is just as profound, maybe even more immediate in some ways.
So let's talk about the good for businesses and workers. What are the big advantages AI brings to the table?
Efficiency is probably the most obvious one. Automating repetitive tasks, data entry, scheduling, pulling basic reports. It frees up human workers for more complex strategic thinking.
Less drudgery, more strategy.
Ideally, yes. And that ties into better decision-making. AI can process enormous amounts of data, spot patterns, even make predictions that humans might miss. Think about finance, marketing, logistics.
Huge potential there. And accessibility, like in schools.
Yes, absolutely. Real-time transcription during meetings, translation tools, interfaces that adapt to different needs. These can make workplaces much more inclusive for employees with disabilities or language differences.
And I guess businesses like the cost savings.
Of course. Streamlining operations, reducing errors, optimizing resources, that always looks good on the bottom line. And beyond just saving money, AI can be a real catalyst for innovation.
How so?
It can enable completely new business models, new products, new services that just weren't possible before. It pushes companies to think differently.
Okay, lots of potential upsides there too.
Yeah.
But connecting this to the bigger picture, the economy, what are the risks that come with this rapid integration?
The elephant in the room for many people is job displacement.
Automation taking over human jobs.
Right. We're seeing it already in areas like customer service, manufacturing, data analysis, maybe even some creative fields eventually. The big worry is whether people, especially older workers or those in lower skilled jobs, can realistically reskill or find new roles.
And if they can't, that just increases inequality.
Massively. Then there's the surveillance aspect.
Monitoring employees.
Yeah, AI tools that track keystrokes, read emails, monitor time spent on tasks. It can create a really oppressive environment and completely erode trust between employers and employees.
That sounds awful.
It can be. And we also see the risk of bias and discrimination creeping in again.
Like in hiring.
Exactly. AI hiring tools or performance review systems can inherit biases from the data they were trained on, leading to unfair outcomes for women, minorities, or other groups.
And just relying too much on the tech, losing the human touch again.
Yes, the loss of human judgment. Over-reliance on AI for decisions that really need nuance, ethical consideration, empathy. Think about healthcare diagnoses or complex HR situations. Mistakes there can have serious consequences.
And overall, does AI tend to concentrate power?
That's a major concern. Often, the benefits of AI accrue to those already in power, the companies developing it, the executives deploying it, the investors funding it. It could very well widen the gap between the top and the bottom.
So again, a complex picture. How do we try to steer this towards AI working for people, not against them, at work?
The ideal scenario, based on what we reviewed, positions AI as an augmenter. It assists humans, makes them better at their jobs, takes over the tedious parts, but doesn't replace their core functions or judgment.
Like a co-pilot, not the pilot.
That's a great analogy. And while everyone talks about reskilling,
It's not that simple.
not at all. Who pays for it? Who has the time and resources? Will there even be enough new kinds of jobs? It's a huge societal challenge that we haven't really figured out.
And it changes the workplace culture too.
Profoundly. How AI is introduced impacts trust, morale, collaboration. Companies need to be really thoughtful about the human side of implementation, not just the tech specs.
And there needs to be some oversight, some rules.
Absolutely. Ethical governance is critical. Without clear guidelines, regulations, and transparency, the push for profit can easily lead to AI being used in ways that harm workers or society.
Okay, this is where, for me, it starts to get really deep. Because to figure out AI's impact, maybe we need to back up and ask, What do we even mean when we say someone is smart or educated?
That's a fantastic question. And the sources we looked at offered a really useful way to break it down into four related but distinct concepts.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, there's knowledge. This is basically the stuff you know, facts, figures, dates, how-to procedures.
Got it. Like knowing the capital of France.
Exactly. Second, there's intelligence. This is more about your raw ability to learn, to solve problems, your processing power, how quickly you can pick things up or figure things out.
Okay, knowledge is what you know. Intelligence is how well you learn or solve. What's third?
Third is smarts. This is about applying that intelligence in practical, social, or context-specific ways. Think street smarts or knowing how to navigate a tricky social situation. It's about agility in the real world.
Ah, so not just book smarts, but world smarts.
Right. And finally, fourth, there's wisdom.
Wisdom. That sounds important.
It is. Wisdom is about knowing when and why to act. It involves judgment, ethics, understanding consequences, learning from experience. It's deeper than just being clever.
Knowledge, intelligence, smarts, wisdom. Okay. So how does this connect to school and AI?
Well, here's the kicker, as you put it earlier. If you look at most modern schooling, what does it primarily focus on?
Knowledge. Lots of facts and information.
Mostly knowledge, yes. Sometimes it tries to measure intelligence, like with IQ tests or certain problem-solving tasks.
But smarts and wisdom, not so much.
Rarely explicitly taught or assessed. And now here comes AI. What can AI do incredibly well?
It can know basically everything instantly. So
Yeah.
knowledge, and it can process information and solve certain kinds of problems really fast. So intelligence, or at least simulating it.
Exactly. AI can mimic knowledge and simulate intelligence at a massive scale, which forces the question, if machines can do that, what's left that is uniquely human? What should we really be focusing on teaching?
Smarts and wisdom.
That seems to be the implication.
Wow. Okay, so if AI handles knowledge and intelligence, what is school actually for anymore?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Because school isn't just one thing. It serves all these different purposes, sometimes conflicting ones.
Like what?
Well, obviously there's the educational purpose, teaching knowledge, skills, critical thinking.
Okay, the obvious one.
But it's also cultural, passing on societal norms, values, history. It acts as socialization and daycare. Kids learn to interact, and parents need a place for them to be during the day.
Right, the practical side.
Then there's the economic function, training future workers, sorting talent for colleges and jobs. It's heavily bureaucratic, standardizing learning, assessing students with grades and tests.
Making things neat and tidy for the system.
And don't underestimate the psychological role, providing structure, identity, milestones, even a sense of safety for young people.
Okay, so school is doing a lot of different jobs. How does AI mess with that?
It doesn't just challenge the educational part by providing answers. It threatens the whole sorting mechanism. If AI can do the work, what do grades mean? It challenges teacher authority. It makes you question if the traditional curriculum is even relevant anymore.
Which brings us back to that AI as a mirror idea.
Exactly. What really stood out from the research was this framing. AI isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature that reveals the system's existing flaws.
So it shows us how little we sometimes focus on real thinking versus just memorizing.
Precisely. It highlights how poorly we've often defined learning. It shows how much the system relies on tasks that are easily automated or faked. Instead of just panicking about cheating, we should be asking, why is our current model of education so vulnerable to being faked by a machine in the first place?
That's a powerful question.
If AI is the mirror, then just adding more tech isn't the answer. Adapting means going deeper.
Okay, so what does that deeper adaptation look like?
It means rethinking what we teach, putting way more emphasis on things like media literacy, understanding bias, misinformation, ethics, creativity, systems thinking, seeing the big picture, and those crucial interpersonal skills.
Skills AI can't easily replicate.
Right, and it means changing how we assess learning, moving away from standardized tests and formulaic essays that AI can ace.
Towards what?
Towards things like oral defenses, where students have to explain their thinking, project-based learning, where they create something unique, collaborative work, critical discussions, things that require genuine understanding and engagement.
And the teacher's role changes too.
Dramatically. Less sage on the stage delivering facts, more guide on the side. A mentor, a coach, someone who helps students navigate complex ethical questions, someone who fosters curiosity.
So elevating the human connection, ironically, because of the tech.
Exactly. It means centering the human, teaching empathy, purpose, how to find meaning together, how to deal with uncertainty and ambiguity, because that's what life is actually like, and that's what AI struggles with.
So pulling that all together, the big takeaway is pretty stark, isn't it?
I think so. AI isn't breaking education, it's showing us what was already broken.
If school is just about memorizing stuff for tests, then yeah, AI is a huge threat. It replaces that function easily.
But if education is about becoming more fully human, more wise, more creative, more connected, more adaptable, then AI isn't just a threat, it's a challenge.
A challenge to actually build the kind of education system we should have had all along.
That's certainly one way to look at it. A wake-up call we desperately needed.
Okay, now, I could already hear some people thinking, hang on, this sounds massive. We argue about teaching cursive. How are we going to fundamentally restructure schools around AI and wisdom? It feels overwhelming.
It's a totally valid reaction. There are real obstacles. You hear things like, schools just aren't ready, or we're too divided on basic stuff already.
Right. Like, how can we handle AI ethics when we can't agree on teaching sex ed?
But the counterpoint we found in the materials is that doing nothing isn't safer. Sticking our heads in the sand doesn't stop the world from changing.
In fact, maybe the division means we need to have these conversations about AI now, before it just happens to us.
That's a strong argument. We need to consciously decide how we want to integrate this, not just let it wash over us.
Huh.
Another big fear is the slippery slope that AI gets in the door and eventually replaces teachers.
Yeah, the automation fear.
And the risk is real, but it comes down to how we implement it. The goal, consistently pushed in the more thoughtful sources, is augmentation. AI handles the grunt work, freeing teachers for the uniquely human parts of teaching.
Support, not supplant.
Exactly. And then there's the very practical objection. We don't have the money, the tech, the training.
Which is true for many, many schools.
Absolutely true. And it means any serious AI integration has to come with major investments in equitable access, massive teacher training, and clear policies. This isn't a quick fix. It's a long-term cultural shift that needs real support and guardrails.
Okay, so let's talk about that deeper shift. If we do try to move toward teaching wisdom and smarts, how on earth do we even do that? People will say, you can't measure wisdom on a standardized test.
Right, the how do you test it question. It's a fair point. Wisdom isn't easily bubbled in on a Scantron.
So what's the answer?
Well, first, maybe we need to accept that not everything valuable is easily measurable in a standardized way. We already assess things like participation or effort, which are subjective. We can use tools like rubrics for critical thinking, portfolios, showcasing projects, reflective essays, structured discussions.
So different kinds of evidence of learning.
Exactly. Evidence that shows deeper understanding, ethical reasoning, practical application, not just recall. Another huge pushback is values. We can't even agree on basic history. How will we agree on what wisdom means?
The culture war obstacle.
Yeah. But again, the counter is interesting. AI itself doesn't have values, but it absorbs ours from the data it's trained on. If we don't teach students how to question, how to analyze different perspectives, how to discern bias, including in AI, then we're just giving them powerful tools without any guidance.
So a wisdom curriculum isn't about what values to hold, but how to think critically about values and evidence.
Precisely. It's about developing discernment, not prescribing beliefs. And finally, there's the teacher burnout issue. Schools are already overloaded. This is just more work for underpaid teachers.
A very real concern.
Absolutely. Which is why this can't just be added onto the current system. It has to involve restructuring. Fewer standardized tests taking up weeks of instructional time. More support staff. Using AI itself to reduce teacher workload where appropriate, freeing them up for the richer, wisdom-focused teaching.
So it's not just adding wisdom class, it's changing the whole ecosystem.
That seems to be the only way it could realistically work.
And beyond the classroom walls, there are bigger system issues, right? Like just how slow education changes.
Oh, definitely. Bureaucratic inertia is huge. You've got local school boards, state regulations, federal policies, unions, testing companies. Change is inherently slow and complex. Getting everyone aligned is a massive challenge.
And the tech gap we mentioned. Wealthier schools getting ahead.
That's a major risk. AI could easily become another way the education system sorts kids by socioeconomic status, creating a kind of digital divide where some learn with AI and others are left competing against it.
That's a scary thought, digital classism.
It is, and underneath it all is that cultural fracturing. the deep disagreements about the purpose of education, about what values matter, it makes any kind of consensus on a new direction really difficult to achieve. Fear of change, fear of indoctrination, these are powerful forces resisting a shift towards something like wisdom education.
Okay, so let's zoom in on assessment again, because if we're saying the current system is flawed, we need to understand what it's actually measuring. What do things like GPA and standardized tests really tell us?
Well, primarily, they're good at measuring recall of specific information. They test your ability to follow instructions, your test-taking strategies, and frankly, how well you perform under pressure in that specific format.
So, memory, conformity, handling stress.
To a large extent, yes, they can filter large numbers of applicants and provide some baseline of academic preparation. But what do they miss?
A lot, based on our earlier discussion. Adaptability,
Yeah.
ethical thinking.
Right. They generally don't measure adaptability, real-world problem-solving, ethical reasoning, emotional intelligence, creativity, resilience, collaboration skills. Many of the things we've been calling smarts and wisdom.
So the things that might actually matter more after you leave school.
Arguably, yes. Standardization makes things scalable and seemingly fair, but if you're only measuring the easy-to-measure stuff, you might be missing the most important stuff entirely. Just because wisdom is hard to test doesn't mean it's not vital to cultivate and, yes, find ways to assess differently.
Which leads perfectly into the next point. What happens after school? Because it really seems like the working world cares less about those traditional scores than we think.
That's a fascinating disconnect. Once you're actually in a job, what usually matters most?
Delivering results, getting along with people,
Yeah.
coming up with ideas.
Exactly. Employers consistently rank things like communication, teamwork, problem solving, initiative, adaptability, and good judgment as highly valuable. Your ability to learn on the job learning agility is often prized far more than your old SAT score.
So the workplace values wisdom and smarts, even if they don't use those words.
It definitely seems that way. They value practical competence, interpersonal skills, ethical behavior, things that our current school assessment system doesn't really prioritize or measure effectively.
So if the current tests aren't cutting it, and wisdom is hard to standardize, what could we do instead? Are there actual alternatives for graduation?
Yes, and the idea isn't necessarily to ditch standards altogether, but to diversify how we measure readiness and growth, to make assessment reflect the complexity of being human. We found 4 interesting alternative or complementary metrics popping up.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, a capstone portfolio. Instead of just grades, students compile a collection of their best work over time projects, essays, presentations, creative pieces, maybe even reflections on their learning journey. It shows synthesis and sustained effort.
Okay, portfolio. What else?
Second, an oral defense or dialogue. Imagine students having to actually discuss and defend their work, their ideas, their research, perhaps in a Socratic seminar style or like a mini thesis defense. This assesses communication, critical thinking on the fly, reasoning.
Makes sense. Talking about your work shows real understanding.
Third, using character and citizenship rubrics. These could involve peer feedback, teacher observations, and self-reflection focused on skills like collaboration, leadership, empathy, ethical conduct.
Assessing the soft skills more formally.
Yes, acknowledging their importance. And fourth, real-world problem solving. Assessing students on how they apply their knowledge to messy, ambiguous, real-world situations, maybe through case studies, simulations, community projects, or internships.
So moving beyond abstract knowledge to actual application.
Exactly. The goal isn't zero standards. It's better, more holistic standards that actually prepare students for life, not just for more tests.
But changing metrics like that, that's got to be tough culturally, right?
Huge implications. You'd absolutely get pushback. Parents and universities are used to GPAs and test scores. They might see portfolios or oral defenses as too subjective or uneven.
How do you ensure fairness if it's not a number?
That's the equity challenge. Assessing soft skills or complex projects requires really well-designed rubrics, extensive teacher training to avoid bias, and maybe even multiple evaluators. It's harder, no question.
And just the logistics. Sounds like a lot more work.
It is more time-intensive than running bubble sheets through a scanner. Scaling these methods for millions of students is complex. But, and it's a big but, these methods are also far more engaging and arguably more humanizing for both students and teachers.
Okay, so let's say we buy into this vision. Moving towards wisdom, using diverse metrics. How do we actually do it? What's the plan?
The big vision is redesigning graduation requirements, making things like a capstone portfolio, an oral defense, a real-world project, maybe some kind of character or citizenship assessment, part of what it means to graduate, alongside demonstrating core academic competencies.
So not replacing academics, but adding these other dimensions.
Exactly. But to make that work, you need a whole support system.
Like what? What do teachers need?
Teachers need serious training in how to guide and assess these kinds of projects and skills. They need time built into their schedules for mentoring, providing feedback, collaborating. And crucially, they need the pressure of high-stakes standardized tests reduced so they can focus on deeper learning.
And schools, what infrastructure do they need?
Schools need the right tech tools, maybe for managing digital portfolios. They likely need smaller class sizes or more support staff to make personalized projects feasible. And they need strong partnerships with local businesses, nonprofits, community groups for those real-world learning opportunities.
And the system overall.
The system needs to develop clear, fair rubrics for these new assessments, new ways to track student growth beyond just test scores. And teacher evaluations need to change too, so teachers are rewarded, not punished, for focusing on these richer forms of learning.
Wow, that's a lot of moving parts. Who actually has to agree to make this happen?
It's layers. Locally, you need buy-in from school boards, principals, teachers' unions. At the state level, departments of education usually set graduation standards. Nationally, government bodies can provide funding and guidance. And importantly, colleges need to signal they'll accept and value these new kinds of transcripts. Plus, you need parents and the wider community on board.
So is this just a pipe dream? Or is it actually realistic?
It's ambitious, for sure, but pieces of it are already happening in innovative schools. So, realistic. Maybe in pockets, and hopefully more over time. Practical. Yes, if it's phased in thoughtfully. Idealistic. Definitely visionary. Sustainable. Only if there's consistent funding and cultural commitment.
Could you imagine a timeline?
You could picture maybe year 1 just for exploring ideas, building consensus, years 2 and 3 for piloting these approaches in some schools, getting feedback, then maybe years 4 and 5 focused on broader policy changes and scaling up, getting colleges and employers comfortable with the new metrics. It's a long game.
Okay, but every plan has risks. What are the downsides of trying this big shift compared to just sticking with what we're doing now?
Great question. If we do implement this new human-centered plan, the risks are significant. You could get massive implementation fatigue among teachers.
Yeah.
If it's rolled out unevenly, it could actually worsen inequality between well-resourced and under-resourced schools.
And the subjectivity issue.
Yes, without strong safeguards and training, assessments could be biased. You'd likely face political resistance, people calling it soft or worrying about values. Colleges might be slow to adapt. And there's a risk of trying to do too much, keeping all the old content, plus adding new skills and diluting everything.
Okay, those are real risks. But what about the risks of not changing, of staying on the current path?
Those risks are maybe less sudden, but just as profound, maybe more so. AI continues to make traditional assignments feel pointless, easy to fake. Student disengagement, which is already high, could get even worse.
School just feels irrelevant.
Exactly. Standardized testing continues to reinforce existing inequities. The intense academic pressure contributes to student mental health crises. We keep graduating students without the skills employers say they need, like communication and collaboration. And teachers, they become increasingly cynical, burned out, feeling like compliance officers, not educators. The system just sort of hollows out.
So looking at those two paths, which risk is greater? The disruption of trying something new, or the slow decay of sticking with the old?
That's the core dilemma. The status quo feels familiar, maybe safer in the short term, but it looks like a path towards irrelevance and deepening problems. The new model is disruptive, uncertain, harder work up front, but it might be the only way to actually revitalize education for the future.
And doing nothing is still a choice, with its own consequences.
Absolutely. Inaction is a high-stakes gamble, too.
Which leads to that really tough question. Is it too late?
Yeah.
Have we missed the boat on changing education before AI completely reshapes everything?
It's a question that weighs heavily, I think. The hopeful answer is no, it's not too late yet.
Why not?
Because people are asking these questions. Teachers are innovating in their classrooms, often against the odds. There are successful alternative school models we can learn from. And fundamentally, the need for human connection, mentorship, and trust in education hasn't been fully replaced by tech. There's still an opening, but the window is definitely closing. Trust in institutions, including schools, is fragile. AI is evolving much faster than education systems typically adapt, and our societal divisions make consensus hard. If we don't make intentional choices, the system will likely shift anyway, maybe through slow decline, maybe through crisis, but not in a way we've thoughtfully designed.
What does that worst-case scenario look like if we wait too long, say by 2035?
You could imagine a future where standardized schooling is largely performative students jumping through hoops with AI assistance, but little real learning. Employers might increasingly ignore diplomas and rely on their own assessments. Public schools could become neglected warehouses for disadvantaged kids, while affluent families pursue personalized, AI-enhanced private options. Teachers might be reduced to proctors and tech support, and the focus on wisdom, ethics, critical thinking, I could just fade away, seen as a luxury we couldn't afford.
Not a sudden collapse, but a quiet hollowing out.
Exactly. A loss of meaning and purpose. Now, is it ever truly too late to try and fix things? Probably not. But the longer we wait, the harder it gets. Harder to rebuild trust, harder to retrain educators, harder to change entrenched systems, harder to shift cultural expectations. The cost of change goes up dramatically.
So it's never absolutely too late to try and rehumanize education.
I believe that. But the real question isn't, is it too late?
It's
Will we find the courage and the collective will to act now before circumstances force our hand in ways we might not like?
And that really lands us squarely in the present moment, doesn't it? This feels like a critical juncture. We're past the initial shock of the pandemic. We're right in the thick of this AI explosion, and we're dealing with all this cultural tension.
It feels like a moment of choice. We still have passionate educators. We still have students hungry for meaning. We have the technological tools. We have the awareness, perhaps more than ever, that the old model isn't working.
But if we just drift, if we treat this as business as usual,
We might look back in 10 years and wonder how we let our education system become so disconnected, so irrelevant, while we were busy arguing about things that, in retrospect, seem less important than the fundamental purpose of learning itself.
so again, the question isn't, is it too late? It's, are we brave enough now?
That feels right.
Okay, let's try to crystallize the main point from our deep dive today. It feels like the big takeaway is that our education system is seriously out of sync with the reality of the world we live in now.
Especially a world increasingly shaped by AI, yeah.
And that AI didn't so much break the system as it exposed the cracks that were already there. This overfocus on memorizing facts instead of finding meaning, on following rules instead of fostering curiosity, on measuring performance instead of supporting growth.
A system more focused on assessment than on learning itself, you could say.
And if we don't make some real changes, and soon, schools risk just fading into irrelevance. Not with a bang, but a whimper.
A slow erosion of purpose and trust. That seems like the trajectory if we don't actively steer in a different direction.
So, systemically, what needs to happen? What are the big levers?
We've touched on them, but to recap, we need real policy change around graduation requirements, moving beyond just tests and GPA to include things like portfolios, projects, maybe oral defenses.
Okay, change the metrics.
We need absolutely massive support for teachers' training, time, respect, autonomy. We need a fundamental public conversation and redefinition of why we have schools shifting the focus towards critical thinking, ethics, adaptability, the human skills AI can't do.
Redefine the purpose.
And underpinning all of it, we need funding and infrastructure that prioritize equity, ensuring that a rich, human-centered education isn't just for the privileged few.
Okay, those are huge system-level changes. But what about the individual listener? If you feel kind of small and powerless against these massive systems, what can you actually do?
That's a crucial question. And there are things people can do, tangible things.
Like what? Give us some ideas.
First, just talk about it out loud. Start conversations with other parents, teachers you know, friends, people at work. Ask those big questions. What is school for? What do we really want kids to learn to thrive? Change often starts with shifting the conversation in our own circles.
So break the silence, question the assumptions.
Exactly. Second, if you can, support or get involved in schools or programs that are already trying new things. Maybe there's a local school piloting project-based learning, or a Montessori high school, or something like big picture learning. Volunteer, mentor, donate if you can. Even helping one teacher try one new thing makes a difference.
Find the bright spots and nurture them.
Yes. Third, use your own voice. Create or curate. Write a blog post, make a short video, share articles and reflections on social media. Help articulate a compelling vision for what school could be. We need positive alternatives, not just critiques.
Add your perspective to the mix.
Fourth, Build bridges, not just echo chambers. Talk to teachers, find out what their frustrations and ideas are. Connect with other parents or community members who feel things need to change but maybe don't know where to start. Coalitions are powerful.
Connect with others who care.
And finally, if you're a student or a parent, don't be afraid to just ask for small changes. Can this assignment be a presentation instead of a paper? Is there an option for project-based work? Can we have a discussion instead of a quiz? Sometimes just asking gives educators the permission they need to try something different.
Small requests can open doors.
They really can.
So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
maybe it's not about fixing everything at once.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't need to fix the entire system tomorrow. You just need to help crack open a little space for something better, something more human to start growing.
Every conversation, every question, every small act of supporting a different way,
Mhm.
it matters.
It absolutely matters. Power isn't always about grand gestures or policy wins. Sometimes the most powerful thing is simply refusing to accept a broken model without question for yourself or for your kids. It's about actively choosing to cultivate wisdom, connection, and adaptability and pushing our systems, however slowly, to value those things too.